My name is Kim Cantrell. I am the Director of Programs here at the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. And I've been working with the California Public Utilities Commission on this project prior to launch. And I'm really excited to tell you what we've been up to and where we are in the process, and then to make you an offer today as well. Our agenda: we're going to be giving you the update, timeline, pre-launch update, where we are, and then next steps. And then our offer is a voice options technical work group where you can participate as well. Okay, so the purpose, overall purpose of today is to give you the update, the official supplemental telecommunications equipment pilot. CFILC is the contractor implementing the project, and so today I'm representing CFILC. Our last meeting together, the public meeting, was January 27th in Sacramento, so the service list was invited to that as well. I'm very excited to share our progress. But first, we have an important announcement. It's not completely a surprise, but still very important. The STE pilot has a name, and that name is Voice Options, a California Speech Technology Program. So for those of you in the webinar room or those of you who are viewing your PowerPoint, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner we have the Voice Options logo, and I will be visually describing that for all the folks on the phone in a few slides when we start talking about marketing. But we are no longer going to be calling the program the STE pilot. It's now Voice Options. So our timeline here. In January 2016, we had a CPUC workshop here in Sacramento on January 27th. And the outcome of that workshop is 5 apps were chosen by an expert panel. And then February through June 2016, the CPUC signed a contract with the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers to implement this project. And also during that time, the CPUC conducted a status conference. In July 2016, CFILC began our pre-launch project phase. So that's when our project actually began, was in July. That's when we started our work officially. All right, so that brings us up to today. So here's our pre-launch update. July through September, what have we been doing? We hired Carolyn Zentner as project manager. We have contracted with 9 organizations to provide demonstration and loan, and those organizations will be listed at the end of this presentation, so you will know all of the organizations participating. CFILC will also be a demonstration loan center because we are a device lending library and in Sacramento, and that brings us to a total of 10 centers participating in the project. So also in July through September, we contracted with West Ed. They are going to be the organization providing program evaluation throughout the pilot. So they're the organization that's going to be compiling a report about the effectiveness and the overall description of the pilot at the conclusion of the project. We've also been working on branding the project and creating materials and a website. So part of that branding is the name and the logo. Okay. We also have chosen a contractor to provide training to all of the staff who will be providing the demonstrations, the short-term loan, and the long-term loan. And the contract's been signed by the training provider, so I can now offer that name. It's the Communication Technology Education Center. It's a department within the Supported Life Institute, and they are located here in Sacramento. So we have AAC specialists and speech language pathologists who work for it. It's the short term, we call it CTEC or CTEC. It's short for Communication Technology Education Center. Oops. Next step. we have our Demonstration Center staff training coming up in November. So in November we have a couple of different trainings. Our first training for staff will be November 7th. It's a webinar remote training similar to this, and we'll be going over pilot administration, all the pieces that they'll need to know from invoicing to reporting, and just getting them up to speed on the basic requirements of the pilot. And then on November 15th and 16th, here in Sacramento, we will be hosting all of the centers. Our staff will participate as well to learn more about the 5 apps that they will be demonstrating and on the iPad Air 2s and loaning out. All right, so it's a 2-day in-person training here in Sacramento. The trainers are the staff from the Communication Technology Education Center. That's coming up quickly. We're very excited getting everything ready because it's coming together, and it means that soon we will have people trying out these apps. And as a refresher, or for people who may not have participated in the January workshop, here's a list of the 5 apps. It's Go Talk Now Plus, Touch Chat with WordPower, Proloquo for Text, LAMP Words for Life, and Predictable. So those are the 5 apps that will be installed on all of the demonstration iPads that will be placed in the 10 centers, as well as on all of the iPads that are distributed for short-term loan. And that way folks can try all 5 and see which one they prefer, if any. So next steps, we're also purchasing that equipment for the demonstration and short-term loan. These are the Apple iPad Airs. They're 32 gigabyte Wi-Fi only Apple iPad Airs. And we're going to have 2 different covers. So when people take a device for short-term loan, they have their choice of either borrowing a device that has a chat wrap with speakers. So it's a hard cover that has the speakers integrated into it. And this cover is made just for people using the iPad as a communication device. So it's for that specific purpose. But other people may not want to use the chat wrap, so we have we're going to be using the thick OtterBox covers for the others, for other people who would rather use the OtterBox. So we'll have several on hand so people can try either one or maybe try both. We also will have some keyboards, and we will ensure that each center has keyboards available for demonstration and loan if a person requests it or if they need it for the type of app they're using. Not all people will need keyboards. It really just depends on the app and their preferences. And they will be Bluetooth keyboards. Okay, so I said that the chat wrap has integrated speakers. The OtterBox case does not. So we will be purchasing additional Bluetooth speakers for the iPads with OtterBox covers. So when a person chooses the OtterBox cover, they will also be borrowing the Bluetooth speakers, and we'll make sure that they are connected before the person takes that iPad out of the center. So the center staff will help them with that. Okay, so there are those choices with speakers. We are also working with the CPUC, and they're including 3 types of mounts, a wheelchair mount, table, and freestanding. A lot of folks will not need mounts, but some people will. So we will have some of those on hand and can be shipped out to people if they need them in order to try out the iPad and apps. Okay, so all of that's coming together. Now again, all of the centers are receiving the speakers and the covers and the iPads and the apps. And then we'll also have mounts available that can be shipped out to folks if needed. Next, Now I've got our logo. It's really big on the screen. It says Voice Options, California Speech Technology Program, a program of the California Public Utilities Commission. It has a lot of purple in the logo, and it kind of looks like a little radio wave. It's kind of fun. So if you haven't seen it, when you get the PowerPoint, open it up. That's my favorite part, is the logo. So I hope you enjoy it too. So what else are we doing to market the program? Our next steps around marketing, we're in the process of building a website for Voice Options, and we will be creating marketing materials. We actually are in the middle of the design process for the brochure right now. It's a trifold brochure. We also want to create at least one other piece of collateral that we can distribute to all of the demonstration centers to let their community know what we're doing. And at CFILC, we're also all about sharing. So if any of you are interested in helping us distribute information about our program within the state of California, because that is one of our restrictions, right? California-based. Let us know. We will share, because we want people to know about this program and come in and try out iPads and see if any of the 5 apps will work for them. Okay. We do ask the demonstration centers who have contracted with us to partner in marketing and outreach efforts. So within their contract, they have agreed to do outreach and to make some presentations as well as some public demonstrations of these iPads to let the community know what they're offering. So a big piece of this pilot is just letting people know that this service exists, because it is such an ambitious timeline. Okay, so those are our marketing efforts. So next up, our public launch for Voice Options is scheduled for early December. We're going to have a public webinar. We also will be announcing it via email. CFILC has a very large distribution list. We will let folks know that way. Also through Ability Tools listservs, the CPUC service list. You all likely found out about this presentation through the service list, or someone forwarded you the information. And then also we will be asking our partner organizations that have contracted with us to let folks know about it too. And then also in December, we begin providing demonstrations and loans. So again, our public launch is early December. We do realize that that's the holiday season, right? So we'll also make a big deal about it in January too. So after the first of the year, we will remind everyone about our program once again, just because there's people coming back to work after the holidays, going back to school, and we want to make sure that everyone knows that we've got this program. So we're very excited about that. So who has CFILC contracted with to provide that direct service, the demonstration, the short-term loan, and also the administration of long-term loans? There are 9 centers plus CFILC, and I'm going to read it through right now for all of you. Assistive Technology Exchange Center, ATEC, which is a program of Goodwill of Orange County. They're located in Santa Ana. The Central Coast Center for Independent Living in Salinas. CFILC in Sacramento. Disability Action Center, located in Redding and Chico, and they serve Greater Northern California. Empower Tech in Los Angeles. They're physically located in West LA. Freed Center for Independent Living in Grass Valley. Rolling Start in San Bernardino. San Diego Assistive Technology Center, a program of UCP of San Diego. And Silicon Valley Independent Living Center in San Jose. And Team of Advocates for Special Kids, also in Orange County. So those are our demonstration centers. And there are 5 in Northern California and 5 in Southern California. So this is where we ask for volunteers, and this is a way for you to get involved. It's very exciting. We have a voice options technical work group. So people who have been working in AAC, if you have that experience, if you have any experience running this type of a program, experience with particular these 5 apps, we would really like you on this work group. And this is your opportunity to provide input on current pilot challenges and then also opportunities. So we'll be thinking creatively about marketing as well. So we're always looking for feedback and ideas of ways we can expand the knowledge of this pilot. You'll also receive more detailed pilot updates. And then our final ask is just join us, and here's what we're asking in return. This is your commitment, is that you must be present at meetings to provide input, right? Because we are on such an ambitious timeline. We just a little less than a year that the centers will be providing demonstration and loans. And because we want to be inclusive as many people as possible, our first meeting is going to be scheduled after members volunteer. So if you feel like you want to be part of this technical work group, the frequency of meeting, at least in the beginning, will likely be every other month. Okay? So I see maybe the first meeting in November, then skipping December, meeting again in January. And then once we really are solid in our program, then it would be more on an as-needed basis, but no less than quarterly. And likely it might even be every other month. So it would be something we would decide with the work group. And so we'll schedule the meeting after people volunteer, because we'll send out something like a meeting wizard to see if we can get the best date and time that works for as many people as possible. Okay? Really, really important to us. So with that, I'm going to bring it back to Emily, who can set us up for our question and answer period.
Hey everybody, so if you have a question on the phone, I'm going to be unmuting the phone in just a minute, and we're going to go through those, try to cipher through those questions. And if you have a question and you're on the webinar platform, you're more than welcome to type your question into the chat box or use the raising hand button, which is right underneath your name and your title at the top of the participation window of the webinar platform.
This is Melissa Kasnitz. I have questions.
All right, Melissa, choose your favorite question, because what we want to do is let everyone have an opportunity to ask one, and then we'll keep circling around until 11 o'clock, or we feel like we've got most of them done. Sound good?
Okay. I've got one top-level question that includes lots of concerns overall. Everything that you've described is entirely off-kilter with the scope of work that was signed and distributed to the service list in the proceedings, which sets out an 18-month project with 4 phases. And the work that's been done to date is quite off-kilter with the phases described in the scope of work. So can you harmonize those and go through and describe why you are well off target with what was described in the scope of work, how you're getting back on target, and what the timeline is to actually do the full distribution, get all of the reports, and do the analysis that was supposed to happen in 18 months per the scope of work that was circulated to the party, or has it been revised, and can we get the revised copy?
So Melissa, can I ask you a question? When you say it's off kilter, you're just talking about the dates, like it didn't start as the dates were written, that the dates are off?
Well, assuming the start is month 1, you said now is July, things that were supposed to happen in months 1 and 2 of the project have not yet happened. Things like the purchasing of equipment were supposed to have been done in month 2 and 3. Surveys and forms were supposed to have already been developed in month 2 and 3. The actual project launch was supposed to be in month 3, but now it's looking to be at month 6.
Okay, so one moment, and allow me to address it as much as possible. Yes, it did start in July, and I have the scope of work in front of me. And you're right. Some of the things have shifted a bit. I mean, first of all, it started in July, and I was still out on maternity leave. I came back in August, and we also hired Caroline in July, and we are catching up quite well. So I'm actually looking down at key actions in month 4 and 5, and rather than the training for Partner Center staff happening in month 4, which would have been October, it's happening in mid-November. So you're correct, we're 2 weeks behind. It also says that the webinar training to the greater public would happen in month 5. It's happening at the very, very beginning of month 6, perhaps the very end.
Purchases were supposed to happen in month 3.
Holistically, the moment to answer your question, I don't want to have to put you on mute until I'm done. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to keep going through. I'll answer all your questions, and then I'm also going to we have some folks on the phone from the CPUC you might want to answer as well. Our purchasing, we've already started purchasing some of the iPads. We've decided that we're purchasing the iPads for the short-term loan as well as the demonstration up front. And that is a key action that's for month 3. And it took us a little bit longer than we expected with Apple because we're purchasing them through Apple in a bulk buy. So we can it's a great way because we can centralize the loading of the apps because that is actually a logistical nightmare. So we're going to be making sure that all of the iPads get the apps that they need before we send them out, and we're looking to have that completed, at least purchased by the end of the month. We want the iPads in the hands of the centers before their training. So if we're looking at it from like what is really important as we're moving forward for all these different pieces, and it's that the iPads are at the centers, that the staff are trained on them, that they feel very comfortable for them, that they're inventoried and ready to go so people can check them out, and that our evaluators get the information they need. So we're collecting all of that data, and we are solid to have that in place before our early December launch. So from a project management perspective, that's where we are. The long-term loan application is currently also being created with the CPUC. We have a lot of the borrowing pieces in place because we already have the AT Exchange, and we are working with West Ed. They're working on a pre-survey, interim surveys, and making sure that that gets done prior to our meeting in November as well. Okay, so what did I not cover? Ask me other subpoints of your question, please.
The working group, which it seems that you're just now convening, was supposed to have been convened right at the very beginning and was supposed to have input on these various functions that you're telling me are well underway and seem quite late to have any influence on. So I'm concerned about that. And is it possible for us to get the monthly reports that CFILC is supposed to be providing as set forth in the scope of work for what is going well, what hurdles are being found, and what adjustments are being made? Because that seems like it would be very useful to understand how this project has moved along. That's okay. A monthly deliverable for every month.
Yeah, okay, so you have a two-part question. One is about the working groups. It's being involved from the beginning, and then the other is receiving the monthly reports. I'd like to defer this question to Jonathan and Alan at the CPUC. I want to make sure that they have mic availability. I know that those are additional questions. We'll answer those too, and then I'm going to see if anyone else has questions and come back. Sound good?
Fine.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that everyone has their voice heard. Okay, Luke, did you have a question?
I did.
Okay, go ahead.
So you're describing the process of making the devices available, but what training and what decision making, which is overall administration, is being given to these distribution centers regarding individuals qualifying for the loan to establish that they have an actual need and that they qualify?
Okay, so for the demonstration and short-term loan, people self-refer. So if they have a speech disability, then they can refer, or maybe a parent or family member can come with them. But there is no evaluation or assessment that is required for short-term loan or demonstration. For the long-term loan, the application is being developed with the CPUC, but it also will not require evaluation or assessment.
It's not going to require a diagnosis? You're not going to require something from a doctor saying this person actually has a communication impairment?
Something like that is, yes, that is going to be part of the long-term loan, but I don't know exactly the wording yet. It's being developed in collaboration with the CPUC, and we're making sure that everything that they want and require on it is there. So it sounds like we have someone else who joined our phone call. Does that happen to be Alan or Jonathan from the CPUC?
Yes, this is Jonathan, and I will circle back to Melissa's questions in a few minutes, but I wanted to respond quickly to Lou's question. The application form will be, in terms of requirements, will be very similar to what the application form requires for participants in our regular equipment distribution program.
The SGD or the process for hearing impaired and people who are deaf?
It'll be consistent with the hearing impaired and deaf. The Commission in its decision determined that these iPads for the pilot project were going to be distributed under the code section that governs the distribution of equipment for the hearing impaired and deaf.
Okay. One other thing, Kim, that you didn't mention is how many devices are going to be available at these centers?
Oh, very good question. 3, so at each center there will be 3 devices for demonstration that will remain on site, 5 devices available for short-term loan where people take it out and they borrow it for 2 weeks to 1 month. That's 8 total devices. And then, yeah, so that's what's at the centers. And then of course there's a universe of 200 devices available for the long-term loan total for the state of California. But first they have to go through demonstration and short-term loan.
So the demonstration is to orient the potential user and a parent or a spouse to select the app that's most desired.
It's to orient them and to provide a demonstration on how to use the app and some basic training on the apps. Likely people will have a couple apps that they prefer, but if a person wanted to be shown all 5 apps, then the staff will do so. And then when that individual becomes a borrower and they take it home, they can play with all 5 apps. So at that point they don't have to make a choice on app. Once they get to the long-term loan and they fill out the application as Jonathan described, and they qualify, then they choose one of the 5 to be installed on the iPad.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Jonathan, did you want to circle back around and answer Melissa's question? She was talking about the working group being involved from the beginning, and then the monthly reports, if those can be made available.
Sure, I'll address, this is Jonathan, I'll address the second question first. I think that those should be able to be made available. I need to check with our control agency about what documentation on contracts could be made public, but I don't see any reason why it couldn't be. And then we can certainly provide those to the working group. With regards to the working group being involved from the very beginning, I think that that is not specified as a requirement in the contract, but I understand the concern, and we will certainly endeavor to have that first working group meeting as soon as we can. Honestly, at this point, most of what we've been working with on CFILC has been contract-related issues in terms of being able to set up the appropriate processes to be able to make sure they receive timely payment, and also just establishing quite a bit of the requirements of making sure the equipment's tagged, consistent with state requirements, the privacy requirements in the state are being met. Options that I wouldn't necessarily consider we would be soliciting technical assistance from the working group for. I also
okay, it's also been the selection of the centers and
right. So I
presumably developments of surveys and things of that sort.
Okay, so Melissa, think that you have filed comments before the Commission asking for a broader role of oversight or a working group and in general for parties in the proceeding, and I think that issue is going to be addressed by the Commission and is sort of beyond what we can address in today's webinar, which is to inform people of our current progress to date.
Okay, thank you.
Kim, can I ask another question, please?
Yes, is this Lou again?
It is.
Okay, go for it, Lou.
When you described the items that will be available in terms of devices and the accessories, the case, the supplemental speakers, the keyboard, and the mounts, you're describing devices that can be matched with people. And the people that you're describing have only speech impairments. But the people who will need devices may very well have coextensive physical impairments. And you're not making any provision for serving them. So something that's really simple would be a key guard. And they're available for iPad-based and other tablet-based devices. But it doesn't appear that there's any planning to make them available to people.
This is Kim again. I know it was something that was discussed in January, but so a key guard, if we pull back from the iPad for a moment, when you think about communication devices, and Lou, I know you know communication devices, if they're like if you're looking at a Tobii or Dynavox or a NovaChat, they're programs that are that set up and you go, okay, I need a key guard, an 8 selection key guard or 16, 32, whatever it is you're doing. And so it's very simple to go, okay, this is for the individual, give them the key guard. When we asked that question in January, we were asking the group of experts, SLP, speech language pathologists, and others who have worked with these apps. Once chosen, we asked, okay, do any of these apps work well with key guards, meaning that it's a static display that doesn't change. So if we bought a key guard for 8 selection, will it line up, right? And at that time they didn't believe so. So if anything has changed where these 5 pre-selected apps would work well with the key guard, please let us know. That's a great question to bring to our technical work group, because if we're missing something like that, or if maybe an individual has difficulty targeting, right, and they need that key guard, we would want to make sure they could use it, right?
I would hope so. I mean, otherwise
right.
You're turning away people with more severe disabilities, and that's a real problem.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, it's one of those things where, I'm going to put my Ability Tools hat on for a second, because I work, for those who don't know, I work with the Assistive Technology, it's our Tech Act for California program. And when we're purchasing devices for our device lending libraries and we're buying these key guards because we think it's really important for people with multiple disabilities to still to have a voice, to be able to independently express themselves, we buy these key guards, but we haven't really bought that many for tablets unless it's going to be dedicated to a particular application that's often preloaded. And it's starting to get a little bit better. We're hearing from the community that these key guards might be working well with iPads in general for communication programs that are just apps, again, downloaded from the iTunes Store apps. But from my knowledge, for these 5 apps, we're just not there yet. But anyone who has different information, please correct me, and we would love for you to volunteer for the technical work group if possible.
So working backwards from what you just said, I'm happy to volunteer for the work group. The other is I'm happy to do the investigation related to the 5 apps and what experience people have had with people who simply have access issues who want to use a device with one of these apps on it. So a question that becomes relevant is particularly in light of what Melissa asked, which is who do I give the answer to? So I get this information. I make my inquiries through the contacts that I have. I receive the answers. I want to report it. How do I give it back to you?
As a member of the technical work group, you can always
Well, I'd like to make it as broadly available. I agree with Melissa, and the idea had been that there would be a greater degree of involvement by the parties to the proceeding. At least it had been our understanding as the pilot went forward. It was controversial and it's complicated. The fact is, I can always email you. That's a very narrow way of providing information, but other people would benefit from it too.
That's right. Jonathan, is there a formal means that you'd like any member of the service list to provide information, or would you like them to go through the technical work group process?
So this is Jonathan. You raised an excellent point, Lou, and I'm thinking that what might work best is to have CFILC as part of its web presence with regards to this pilot tablet project to also provide a section on the website where the working group the technical work group can share information among participants in that group, and it can also act as a repository of that information for future use by the Commission in considering issues related to further implementation of a tablet distribution program.
So having never set up a website, is that a difficult or an easily accomplished task?
I think that we'll probably need to go back and talk to CFILC about it, but I would imagine it's something that we can do.
Okay.
This is Melissa, a clarifying question. I think Lou would be terrific to have on a technical working group, and that his information would be very useful, but you've previously said that people need to be in the room to participate, and I know Lou is on the East Coast and has generally not participated in person throughout the proceeding. I assume that he would be permitted to participate in the working group without getting on an airplane?
There'll be phone calls, Melissa. This is Kim.
Okay, but you previously said that the person has to be present in person to participate.
No, I just said present at the meeting, not in person.
Okay, I understood it to be in person,
Sorry
so
about
that's
that.
fine.
Very good. That's a good question. Because I think I just said must be present and didn't say it was going to be a remote meeting. So there you go. Excellent. It'll be remote, likely teleconference, and then we would use our webinar platform, if for nothing else, just to help us record the meeting, right? So if you can only join via phone, that's fine too. As for the website suggestion, Lou, we'll talk to our webmaster and see what we can do, because we already are going to have a login section, and that sounds like we might need 2 login sections. So we'll play with it. We'll let you know.
I'll be here. Thanks.
Do we have other questions? Are there other folks on the phone that have a question?
It's Lou again. And Melissa has more as well, but I'll let anyone else go before I take it.
For just one moment, gang, there's like a half-second delay between the telephone and the webinar platform. So if anyone's logged into the webinar platform who has a question, either raise your hand or type it in chat. Our intent is to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered or at least addressed. Otherwise, Melissa, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'd like to ask about the development of success metrics, which, again, I've previously presumed should be developed before the project actually begins. But my understanding is that this whole pilot is intended to culminate in an evaluation to determine whether the program should either continue through the structure that's being created now or be incorporated into the more standard CTAP program. How and when are the metrics for that evaluation going to be developed and utilized to figure out long-term what's going to happen with this program?
Okay, this is Kim. Jonathan, if you want to jump in at a point, feel free. Our evaluators, West Ed, they know that they're looking at a couple of different major questions to guide their evaluation. One is there a need for this service in the state, which we don't know how many people are going to come forward and want to participate. And then another one of the major questions that we shared this in January as well is this the most appropriate distribution mechanism, meaning using our device lending libraries and other tech centers throughout the state. So that's going to be guiding their evaluation throughout. Jonathan, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, this is Jonathan. I think the other thing I'd like to add is that I think that, Melissa, we would be happy to have West Ed participate in one of the technical working group calls to provide more insight into the metrics and how they plan on conducting their evaluation. We're happy to make them available to make. They're actually going to be conducting independent evaluations. They're in the best place to describe what it is they're going to be doing. I also just want to clarify that I don't think it's a binary choice between the current equipment distribution program that the Commission runs for the Deaf and Disabled Telecommunications Program and using the Assistive Technology Network. I think there's a variety of options that could potentially be available to the Commission or some combination of the two. And so we have not asked West Ed to specifically frame it in the couch of frame it in terms of a decision between one distribution model versus another, versus just identifying elements that a distribution model would need to be able to address. Among other things, we haven't to this point in time attempted to enter into a contract with the vendor that currently provides the majority of the oversight for our distribution model, but as you are aware, Melissa, there are several vendors that are involved in the equipment distribution in California for the Deaf and Disabled Telecommunications Program, and we would need to basically go through a contracting process with those vendors to be able to distribute this type of equipment. And so we have not gone down that path with them yet, in part because with regards to some informal conversations, there were concerns expressed by the vendor pool that we currently use about relative expertise in the area. And that is one of the key reasons why we went with the Assistive Technology Network as a vendor, was that they had relevant experience in the area with regards to these highly specialized devices. We have built up quite a bit of experience in other specialized devices that we distribute in the program, but that has been done over a number of years. So I think the Commission and parties will have to wrestle with, through a formal proceeding, answering the broader questions of what the elements of a distribution program should be, more so than perhaps which particular model to choose. I think the Commission will focus on what it's trying to accomplish in a distribution program, and then leave the actual contracting for the distribution program to happen through the state mandated contracting process.
Thanks, Jonathan. Just to follow up, do you anticipate that at the conclusion of the pilot, it'll be presented as part of the formal proceeding and there will be a formal Commission evaluation and subsequent decision on what to do next? It's never been clear to me that that's how it's going to proceed, but I would view that as very helpful and appropriate.
Yes, this is Jonathan. Yes, I think the intention all along was to sort of, do the pilot, gather more information about a very diverse group of potential participants, basically get our feet wet, and then bring it back to the parties in the proceeding and the Commission and obtain further guidance about how the Commission wants us to move forward.
That's good to know. That's never been clear. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions? These are good questions. Even if there's small questions about our next steps or things we've done, we'll share what we can, what we know. No, we're good?
It's Lou again.
Go ahead, Lou.
There will be a limited supply of these devices. Have you been working on what message you'll tell people when they come in and there isn't one available?
Yeah, so the active part of the project with the long-term loan, I mean, if we're not able to distribute 200, which personally I think is highly unlikely, but if we are not able to do it, it ends September 30th of 2017. But if the 200 are distributed right prior to that, then we will still maintain doing demonstration and short-term loan because we want to see how many people come in, think that this might work for them, try it out, do the short-term loan, and we will let them know from the get-go that we only have the devices available for short-term loan at this time. And I think what I'm looking at that point, even though they can't take one home for long-term loan and choose one app, the way that it typically works with our device lending libraries, people can borrow it for 30 days. If no one's waiting, then they can keep it a little bit longer. And we have other devices through our device lending libraries that folks can borrow for a slightly longer period of time. And we have resources within our Ability Tools network and the staff at the centers where we can do our best to help people obtain an iPad if they can't afford to buy one themselves. And maybe they fall through the cracks, right? And they won't hit one of the major funding sources, which would be like health insurance and education. Some people might be Department of Rehabilitation. But for those who don't know that those are funding sources and they do qualify, that's what our network does so well. And so once those 200 are distributed, we still want people to know that this technology exists, and we want them to tell us if it helps them communicate independently.
So an option that you didn't mention is just redirecting them to the SGD side of it, because the devices that you're describing should be available from that program as well.
Right, and we will from the get-go. We always let people know about that program because that's such a great one. It's also a funder of last resort that requires an evaluation too. So
you mentioned that as one of the assets of the agencies that you're contracting with for the demonstration and distribution. That SLPs will be part of the staff, part of the cadre that's available there. Are those people available to do evaluations?
Some centers have SLPs and some do not. So that is not part of this particular pilot. However, like you said, we are resources. So we have a list of folks who do AA assessments on our Ability Tools website, abilitytools.org, under resources. If people need an evaluation, we can send them there prior to the SGD, referring them to the SGD site. We also, which I failed to mention earlier, we've talked about this too, is the 200 long-term loaners, they're gone, right? People are enjoying them, it's great, but then if someone comes in late, what do? We help them in all the ways I just described. And in addition, we'll keep a wait list. And that's just in case the program ever opens again, and it's truly just to track demand. So we're not saying it's a wait list as in just wait 3 years and you too will have an iPad. We don't know, but we want to demonstrate need, right? So we will do all of the above.
This is Melissa. Go ahead, Liz.
Please go ahead.
For the demonstration centers, just looking at the list, I appreciate that it's half in Northern California, half in Southern California. But in the Greater Bay Area, there's just one, and it's down in San Jose. There's nothing in San Francisco, East Bay, North Bay, very densely populated areas, and East Bay in particular is certainly the home of many people with disabilities. Is there a reason for that? Is there any potential to remedy that?
We reached out to the tech centers and the device lending libraries in those areas, and at this time they were unable to participate for various reasons. A lot of times they didn't have the staffing, or it just wasn't a good fit. So yeah, we realized that's a gap. It's unfortunate.
Melissa, didn't you bring an SLP to one of the meetings earlier?
Jen McDonald-Peltier, who works in my organization, is not a licensed SLP, but she has a lot of work with assistive communication, and I hope that she will be available to participate in the work group, but she wasn't available today to be on this call.
But she's part of your group?
She's part of my group, and then there was the other Jen, Cogiola, who was an SLP,
right.
And she indicated to the service list a couple months ago, yeah, that she's no longer available, which is a great loss.
But is there any comparable center in the Bay Area to the ones that are there, or even your organization?
To the ones that are on this list? Yeah, there are centers for independent. Sure, there are centers for independent living in other places, but it sounds like Kim is saying that those didn't work out for reasons that I am unaware of. Is that right, Kim?
Well, yeah, I mean, I reached out to your center to Melissa, and Jennifer said that she just didn't have the capacity. She was the only one who did it, and she's already has too much.
Yeah,
so,
that's correct. And there's Center for Independent Living in Berkeley, and I know there's a ILRC in San Francisco, and I'm assuming you contacted each of these, and you're saying that none of them.
Right. It wasn't a good fit. Yeah.
What do you mean by not a good fit?
Meaning they said no, that they didn't want to participate.
Okay, so there were none that wanted to participate but just didn't work out for some other reason when you say not a fit?
The folks that I reached out to, Center for Accessible Technology, CRIL, and Independent Living Resources San Francisco. Those two are device lending libraries. Center for Accessible Technology is an AT center. So they all have done similar things, and that's what we were looking at for the scope of this project. And those three centers declined to participate.
Okay, and CIL in Berkeley?
They are not a device lending library.
Okay.
I know. But, I mean, we had a fast turnaround. We'll see what happens in the future. But for this program, we were able to get 10. So at least, I mean, I feel good that we have 5 in the north and 5 in the south. Lou, did you have another question?
If I did, it's either been answered or lost in the vast emptiness of my head here.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? If you are logged in, I think there's only 1 or 2 folks logged in. Emily, who's our moderator, also provides information and referral for ability tools, and she shared a link to the list of folks that provide AAC assessments, and we're always updating it because it's always changing. And so for the service list or the technical work group, I can share it with the technical work group, or if anyone on the phone would like me to email, share it with you. The next slide will have my email address. If you email me, I'll send you the link. I don't necessarily want to send it out to the whole service list unless told to do so by the CPUC, because it doesn't, I mean, it's kind of an offshoot of this pilot project.
Oh, Kim, one more question. I'm sorry, that just came to mind looking at your last slide. What are the different roles and responsibilities between you and Carolyn Zentner? She was introduced to us at one point via email as project manager, but all subsequent communication has come through you, so it's not clear what your various responsibilities are. Right.
I have been working on the contracting. I've contracted with all the centers, worked on the contracting with WestEd and the trainer. I am the liaison with the trainer and WestEd. I do the public presentations like this one, and Caroline's working directly with the demonstration centers and is getting trained herself on the apps. So she'll be working that way with the centers, and then also ensuring that all of the equipment gets properly tracked and recorded.
So who's going to be working with the technical working group? Both of you?
Both of us.
You? Oh,
I will be there. Yep. Good question. Any other questions? And once we hang up, if you have additional questions about our project, feel free to email me too. I'm going to go to the next slide, the final slide, if you're not on the webinar. Most of you are not, so I'll read what's on the slide. It's just a big thank you for taking the time out. I mean, it's 75 minutes out of your day. Again, feel free to contact us. Again, my name is Kim Cantrell with CFILC. My phone number is 916-325-1690, extension 315. Again, 916-325-1690, extension 315. And my email address, I just emailed everyone, so you likely have it, but it's Kim, K-I-M, @CFILC.org. And Caroline Zentner is the project manager at CFILC. Her number is 916-325-1690, extension 303. And her email is caroline@cfilc.org, and it's spelled CAROLINE @cfilc.org. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate the time you took. Big thank you to the CPUC for all of their staff who participated, and to our captioner for taking the time to make sure everything's recorded for the folks who need it. Also, thank you to Emily for an amazing job and for keeping us flowing throughout. Thank you so much, and we'll keep in touch. Email me if you would like to participate in the technical work group. Thank you.